At this hour, a jury in Fairfax, Virginia is deliberating the defamation case of actors Johnny Depp and Amber Heard for a third day. Depp is suing his ex-wife for $50 million and Heard is countersuing for $100 million. He claims Heard's 2018 op-ed in the Washington Post hurt his career. In it, she called herself a public figure representing domestic abuse. In her countersuit, Heard claimed she was defamed by Depp's lawyer, who called her abuse allegations a hoax. Trial watchers have consumed every minute of the 6-week trial, which had its share of compelling moments. Take a listen.
Johnny promised me he would ruin me, that he'd ruin my career, he'd take my life from me. Death was the only way out, and if I got out, this is what he'd do to me. He'd make me think of him every single day. He promised me global humiliation.
Have never in my life committed sexual battery, physical abuse, all these outlandish, outrageous stories of me committing these things.
Right, many of those commenting took a side, but others spoke of the danger of such a serious topic being turned into entertainment. Actress Drew Barrymore called it a 7-layer dip of insanity and then apologized for the quip. Former Spice Girl Mel B says to look at this case as entertainment is damaging, referring to the seriousness of spousal abuse allegations. And Monica Lewinsky calls it courtroom porn, saying that no matter who wins the trial, we, the spectators, are all guilty. So is the sensationalism of this trial robbing it of its humanity? Let's bring in David Glass. He's a certified family law specialist with a PhD in clinical psychology. David, thank you so much for being with us. So what are your thoughts on this trial overall? In terms of just the overall sensationalism aspect of it and how it is basically being turned into entertainment, but also what your expectation is for deliberations in terms of how long that part could last and which way the verdict is likely to go at this point.
Yeah, the sensationalism portion of this trial is the unfortunate result of both parties throwing as much mud as they can at each other, trying to prove their case. But in the end, a defamation case isn't about all these awful things they've said about each other and all the awful things they claim the other has done. It comes down to very specific things that the jury has to look for. And that's where the jury is now. This deliberation is going to take some time because the jury has 6 weeks of testimony that they've taken notes on and physical exhibits that they have to review and 38 pages of jury instruction that they have to go through before they can come to a verdict either way or no way.
And when you think about, I mean, everyone has talked about the fact that nobody comes out of this looking good. Both of their careers are in shambles after this. But I think that Amber Heard, just according to public opinion at least, Amber Heard has emerged as the least sympathetic figure of the two. Why do you think that is?
I think it's a continuing cultural phenomenon where the pendulum swings. So for a while, the Me Too movement basically said we need to believe all women who come forward with abuse allegations. And that's a fair thing to do. But now the pendulum has swung the other way with people claiming that these abuse allegations are made up, or in this case, a hoax. And it just comes down to how many fans each of these parties has. While Amber Heard has $8 million followers on TikTok or social media, Johnny Depp has 18 million. And so that's the court of public opinion is on his side. I'm not sure the jury is going to follow public opinion.
Yeah, I mean, there's also, audio evidence that sort of shows what some people have referred to as mutual abuse by the two of them as well.
That's right. This case comes down to what a Los Angeles family law judge used to say when he would say that Mother Teresa doesn't get married to Attila the Hun. These are both damaged people. They have their own specific flaws. They both look to their relationships to create chaos and emotional intensity, I think, to make them feel like they are still alive and still existing and still relevant. And that's what led to their very troubled relationship, which only lasted about a year.
Some people say that the real winner in this trial is Johnny Depp's lawyer, Camille Vasquez. What is it about her style and her talent and her skill, to be honest, that has managed to win the sort of admiration, I guess, of so many?
Ms. Vasquez's skill is in making herself very personable. Lawyers aren't trained this way. We're trained to think in a very definitive way, to look for black and white, to present the evidence. But what she has done is shown a very personal side to Johnny Depp. All the allegations or speculation as to her relationship with Johnny Depp, I think, is just her trying to show the jury that Johnny Depp is not a scary person. He's not someone you need to shy away from. She's fine putting her arm on his shoulder. She's fine sitting next to him or joking with him. And to the extent that that affected the jury's decision making, I think it was very well planned.
And have we actually ever seen anything quite like this? I mean, what is this case comparable to? And the decision actually to go to trial. I mean, when you think about defamation lawsuits, obviously happens all the time. One person settles. There's usually some kind of a negotiation. That decision to actually be willing to take this all the way to a public trial is quite a bold one.
Yeah, and I think that Johnny Depp never really intended to win this defamation trial. He had already lost a defamation trial that he brought in the UK against the paper for publishing a statement that he was a wife beater. And in the United Kingdom, it's a lot easier to make a defamation case than it is in the United States because there's no First Amendment protection. So his bringing this case in the United States, I think, was more about mobilizing his public, improving his public persona, getting all of his people to start posting on social media so that he can go back to Hollywood and say, see, I still demand attention. I can still sell a movie. Right now I have 18 million people who are following me actively, in addition to all the other people who are on my side.
That's certainly an interesting viewpoint. All right, David Glass, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much.